latest and kind of updates about what's going on in the state of Ohio's news, government, and how those kind of interplay with the Ohio State House and what we can do overall in this campaign and overall in the State House to be able to accomplish and be able to work towards the outcomes that we all hope to be able to see. So, as always, we're joined with Senior Policy Advisor Paige Hodder. Paige, thanks for being here.
Happy to be here.
All right. So this week we're going to be able to talk a little bit about Governor DeWine's press conference from last week, where he laid out a lot of the new health guidances and some of his new recommendations for schools to be able to operate this fall. Obviously, we're looking just in less than a month, a lot of students are going to be going back to college. We're going to have students starting back up in K-12 schools all across the state. It's obviously right around now when we need to be able to know and have a good concrete plan of how we're going to be able to keep the students, the administrators, the faculty, our teachers, parents, family, all those kind of people safe going into the fall. So, Paige, can we start with some of the announcements from Governor DeWine last week and how we're going to be addressing COVID-19 in our state schools?
Yeah, so the biggest part of that press conference was that he released a set of guidelines that he is expecting public schools to follow. However, part of that is these are only guidelines, and that should a school want to increase or decrease them at their discretion, they would theoretically be able to do that. These guidelines are following symptoms, making sure people who have symptoms of any kind are not coming into the school, washing hands regularly, often, and making sure students really know how to wash their hands properly and not just rinse them, and then thoroughly cleaning and sanitizing the school environment, getting a really deep clean before students go back, but then obviously cleaning surfaces on a regular basis as much as you can. Practice social distancing, which would come in lower class sizes, spaced out desks, and then developing a face covering policy, which is obviously one of the more vague ones. It's kind of left up to the schools on what that means in terms of what is an adequate mask. And I think the recommendation was that students in 3rd grade and up should be wearing face masks. Obviously, getting a kindergartner to wear a mask on a regular, and getting a kindergartner to do anything is not easy. So that one's more understandable to me. Obviously, it would be great if we could, but that's the recommendation on that one in terms of age.
Gotcha. Now, all of those different points, whether it's providing cleaning or the mask policies or otherwise, you mentioned this at the start. These are guidelines, right? So that means what exactly for most local schools?
I mean, it means this is what they should be trying to be doing. It's what Governor DeWine wants them to be doing, but it's not an order. It's not a requirement. There's going to be no one checking that people are going to be doing these things, that schools are following these to the fullest extent. Obviously, it's hard to develop a statewide plan that would work specifically for each school. Each school is different in terms of population, student density, and age covered and stuff like that. But again, these are just guidelines. No one has to follow them.
So unlike efforts in similarly affected states and areas that are coming under increased pressure, like Texas announcing a full statewide mask order, we just put out a set of guidelines. That's the best the state can do, which isn't, I would say, consistent with the governor's leadership throughout this. That seems, as of recent, him not being able to put down statewide guidelines and being a leader on these issues. I don't know if he's scared by his Republican colleagues in the State House or what it is, but we need to be able to set a firm precedent for the entire state, regardless of what we're expecting. Because I don't want to be able to have to worry about our teachers and our kids on whether or not they're going to be able to have the proper standards just based off of where their zip code says they are or where they happen to fall through the school district lines. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So we need to be able to have some kind of statewide firm standard that is going to be required of everyone, at least a bare minimum. So with these kind of guidelines, it's obviously left up to the local schools. What are some of the local schools deciding to do with their districts in our area or across the state?
Yeah, so the biggest announcement locally was the announcement of the Cincinnati Public Schools, which officially decided, the board voted on a hybrid online in school year plan, which would, depending on like grades and stuff like that, have certain grade levels and classrooms in the school, like 3 days one week, and then at home 2 days, and the next week they would be in for 2 days, and then at home for 3 days, so that every student gets 5 days of in-person and 5 days of online schooling every 2 weeks, and then it would alternate. So that's how they are managing the problem of having to keep desks 6 feet apart. If they had gone for a fully in-person, because of class numbers and like the number of students and the class sizes, like the actual physical room sizes, they would have only been able to keep desks 3 or 4 feet apart.
Okay. And a lot of that has to do with class sizes are too large anyway. We already have are asking teachers to teach too many kids at once, and then that doesn't provide the same quality education as we could have. So that's a entirely separate but related issue that is causing problems, is that we haven't built our schools to be able to have the class sizes that are most appropriate for the quality of the education the students deserve and for the teachers trying to provide it. The regulations overall, these are this is the state level type items. Now, what is the Center for Disease Control, the presidential administration, what's their
areas probably just isn't realistic. And with schools, as we talked about it, you just can't keep students healthy and safe, and have them in school 5 days a week until we have a vaccine or something like that. But the biggest problem with that is he has threatened to cut federal funding for schools who do not have their students in classrooms 5 days a week, which is ridiculous.
Yeah. It's all backwards. Everything is backwards about how we should be approaching this, about the fact we're making guidelines optional, the fact that we're deciding that public schools need to be have their funding cut during this point in time to be able to make up for the budget cuts and to ensure that we don't have to spend any of the rainy day fund right now because that's going to be pushed off to who knows when. Governor Hoop saying we're going to end up using it someday, and it'll be used whenever we need it, which is and has been for the last 10 years to be able to make up for school funding. But we still are choosing to prioritize budget cuts for public schools over private and charter schools. The Ohio Capital Journal just came out with the fact that charter schools and private schools statewide have received tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars in coronavirus relief funding from the federal government in the form of forgivable loans, while we're asking our public schools to do more with less, which it's just plain ridiculous that we are trying to keep our kids safe, trying to keep the people that have dedicated their lives to teaching our kids, keeping them safe, and we can't even provide them with adequate resources. And when we get to the higher collegiate level, we see that schools are continuing to raise tuitions right now during an economic recession and charge COVID-related fees to be able to pass along all related expenses to students and their parents. And it's just completely backwards about how we should be approaching every little piece of this.
Totally agree. And I think one of the big points that Donald Trump made was that schools in Germany are able to be open. They're opening back up and doing better. But America did not react to the coronavirus pandemic in the way that Germany reacted. Obviously, America is a very different country in a lot of ways than Germany, so I'm not saying that we could have done everything that they did, but there's a reason they can open up safely, and that we're probably going to have to take a few bit more precautions. And not realizing that is just idiocy.
Yeah. I encourage, like we have in previous weeks, everybody to ignore those state leaders who are encouraging you not to get tested and encouraging you not to wear face masks. That is completely, it's going to cause people to get sick. It's going to cause people to not take necessary precautions. Please listen to the public health experts who have spent their entire careers and received decades of experience, training, and education to be able to provide us with the recommendations that they are now and have since January. Wear a mask, keep social distance, and please wash your hands and use as much hand sanitizer as you can. We need to be all safe together to be able to get through this in the next couple of months. That's what our leaders should be saying. They should be following those experts who know exactly what we need to be doing during this time of crisis. So, Paige, is there anything else you want to be able to add?
No, I think we covered all the big points.
All right. Well, thank you so much for breaking this down, as always, with us each week. Please join us back here next Thursday, as always, and we look forward to being able to